I'm sitting here. I have the new 3D printer going. It'll be my birthday in about 2 hours as I'm recording this. And it is going upstairs, and I had no idea. It's a color 3D printer. I knew it was going to be something. But, it has to do this thing when it switches between filaments, because it has 4 different color filament reels that feed into one sort of nozzle, or one little feeder into the nozzle. And I'm listening to it in the background right now. It's upstairs, but it has to extrude and chop. And I don't know, exactly how and why it's doing it. And I just haven't really given it the thought. I'm sure I could think about it logically, but obviously it needs to ensure that the tips are clean, and it does a little extrusion to load one in and get rid of the others. There's a cutting involved. You obviously, it has to cut it to cut one filament to let the other in. But anyway, now I'm getting really, really deep into this 3D printer, and I want to thank FlashForge for finally sending it. But so there's a lot of waste that comes out the back. There's literally a little poop chute, and all of these little curled up different pieces of each color as it switches, and you have to realize it switches a lot because it's printing color in 3D. So it might do a little bit of this and a little bit of that, and then go back to something else again. So I'm trying to print things in multiple even as I'm testing, so I'm maximizing those switches. I'm not just having it switch, and because it's a lot of extra filament and a lot of waste. And eventually I'm going to have to I really have been wasting a lot of filament in my 3D printer adventures. But it's so much fun. So I'm printing these they look like little crushes, little turtles, little sea turtles. And it's, no, they don't look like Crush. They look like Squirt. But they're adorable. And they're almost done. They're a couple hours away. I think it was an 8-hour print. And it's printing 3 of them, and they're keychains, and they're movable. So as soon as you take them off the printer, they're going to be movable like a fidget toy. And they look fantastic. I've done a couple tests so far, some Spider-Man stuff, and I started printing a Spider-Man figure, but it was switching colors so much for one figure that I stopped it, because just to do it in a line of black or a line of white or whatever. And it's a constant switching and cutting kind of thing. And I was like, let me just dial it in here. So I found something that was Disney-esque, these little sea turtles. And then I was like, okay, I'll make some content with that as well. But I'm excited because those are almost done. It's really remarkable. Again, it does use a lot of plastic, so depending on what you're printing, but in terms of me just playing around, and out of the box there were some issues. It wasn't booting right, but we got that working. I say we as in me and the 3D printer spirits. But I'm very happy with it. I'm very happy with it so far, and I have these really fun little Spider-Man flat keychains that are 4-color. And like I said, I'm printing these turtles right now, and they're coming out fantastic. I'm excited for those. So I wanted to pop on real quick because I'm a couple hours away from my birthday, which means I'm going to wake up tomorrow morning and nothing's going to be any different. But I do have an AM coffee prepared, and by prepared, I mean that I know I want to talk in depth about – sorry, I'm not distracted by the ice tumbling in the background because I really just sat down to do this impromptu. And I also know you won't hear any of these things, but it's just I got machines everywhere. It's it's a fun house. But tomorrow on the AM coffee, and you may be hearing this after the fact, so I shouldn't even say tomorrow, but when we talk on the AM coffee, I will drill down it with specificity about this whole Jeff Volley situation. But let me break down here, and then I'm gonna try to keep this brief. So let's go back to the day that the rivers of America are closing. I decided to go to Magic Kingdom. It's the day I made the vlog about going and getting the perfect burger, and I was over at the Contemporary, and then I went and got a haircut. And I didn't get on the riverboat. I didn't go to the island, but I was there and I was watching, and I got my little captain's certificate, and I took some pictures, and I just chatted to some random people. It was very nice. It was sad in the respect of I'm not for the change, and that's a different conversation, and I get the parks need to be plussed, but this isn't plussing. And I get home, and I'm like, oh, I'll have a nice relaxing evening. And in my DMs, I get a screenshot. And the screenshot is allegedly a correspondence between Walt Disney World president Jeff Volley and a guest who was saying on the day of the time that I was there, around 4 o'clock in the afternoon, they were going back and forth. And he was saying, hey, you know, congratulations on shutting down this thing and really ruining the park. It was a little snarky, maybe even a lot snarky. But Jeff responded. He responds. Couldn't make up my mind there. Jeff responds. And there's a whole back and forth, like I said. And now I get these as screenshots. And they're not, the first time I get them, they're just cropped screenshots. So I say to the person, and if you're listening, if you listen, it was Joshua L. Harris. I'm trying to practice not talking about the other people, so I was sort of lumping everybody into anonymous for the sake of moving forward here. But obviously, you know, he's out there on Twitter with it as well. So what he first sends me is cropped. And I said, look, I gotta see some proof here. I mean, anybody could do this, right? And obviously he gets that. So he sends me screenshots and you can see the email. And you're like, okay. And these photos don't look doctored. And what's funny is when you start sharing stuff on social media is everybody will tell you things are doctored. And I won't say I was convinced, but I was definitely, and I don't want to say worried, but I was definitely taking it serious. It's one of those things where you look at it and you go, okay, this is ridiculous. Like, this shouldn't be happening. Why would a guy at this level be doing this? Then it's a Sunday on a holiday weekend. You're like, who knows? Maybe he's sitting there with his phone and he's got nothing better to do. I don't know what you know. So, but I see enough to validate it because of who Joshua is, and I know that if he said he got this email, then it would that I trust him with that. I know he's a smart guy, and so I felt good about that. So I put it out there, whether it was Substack or on Twitter. I put it out there, right? And I don't even know if I put it out on TikTok yet. But it wasn't until it was brought to my attention that a month earlier, somebody posted on Twitter about this whole thing happening to them. Similar story, but again, a month earlier. So I'm like, okay, well, this can't just be like a ruse, right? It's not like, you know, I'm falling for it, you know, in succession. We're going backwards here. So right out of the gate, what are the odds that, you know, this would be sitting here from a month ago, right, you know, after I found this? Now, it was brought to my attention, which is amazing, but now you're like, okay, this is really starting to add up. Like, this is, and then you're going to tell me if it was fake, that they're both faked with this, you know, a month apart separately with the same exact sort of cadence, if you will, the way that he's answering people. And then again, he's going back and forth in both of these. So there's patterns, right? There's patterns. So I start writing about it on Substack, and I start getting engagement on Twitter, and people are calling it out. But a lot of people understand the veracity of the situation. People are begging for more receipts. And I kind of give it a day or two to cool. And then I'm like, I gotta push. So this morning, I started pushing, and I get much more from the ones that were there a month earlier. I get much more. I don't get the actual email, but I get screenshots of the proper address from the sender. Okay, and there's nothing about these that say doctored pictures, right? But I get the full, screenshot now. Because again, the thing that made the earlier, and by earlier I mean the second one that I discovered, but earlier in the sense of the ones that were actually posted first, the things that made those ring so true to me, to the extent that like it was more about those, they almost validated the other ones, right? Because when I saw those, I was like, oh, the same thing. He's saying like be safe, and it's a month earlier again, so that's a big part of it, And then on top of that, that whole back and forth, that whole arguing, and there was a congratulations subject in both. And I thought that was an interesting thing. Okay, so maybe he sees congratulations and he accidentally opens up the email, right? I don't know. And then he's just, too weak to not respond? So all of these things start to look really, really legit to me, but, it's still not enough. And I want the emails. I want the emails in my inbox. But I knew just from what this guy had posted a month earlier that this was pretty close to absolute, this was pretty close to being absolute, right? Like, I mean, we were right there. Like, so I'm just trying to get the email. Really, I'd like them from both sources, because what it'll say, it already is being said, but it'll give me the further confidence to move forward accordingly, because I think this is a massive story. And I know a lot of you get it, so I'm not even going to explain why it's a massive story. You can read, I've written about it. So all of this to say, we've come this far, and I put my neck out there, but now I'm like, I need to further solidify, or if people are faking emails, and I don't suspect they are, and that's the story, I will run with that story. Right? But let's figure out where this story is headed. Well, let me tell you where the story is headed. In my inbox, I have the actual email, not a screenshot. It's forwarded to me, okay, and I am on I'm on the thread. I'm on the thread. I guess in theory, I don't know if I can actually respond to all. I would never do it. I'm just, for entertainment purposes, opining. But I don't think you could. Couldn't, no, because everybody's lower in the. But the point is, it's a real email. And I was like, oh no, because now I can't. Oh no, like it's. And I don't need, I wanted the other one. I don't have the other one, but I have the full screenshot of the entire email in the inbox with all the information. Okay. And that is enough combined with the one that is sitting in my inbox to validate this. And if they're a month apart, it only means there are several more out there. It's a fascinating story. My mind is spinning over how to move forward with this. So I wanted to sit down while this was fresh in my mind. But I have ideas. I have ideas on how to move forward here, but I think what's most apparent to me as somebody that moved here right after the pandemic is that post 50th celebration, there's been a rapid decline in the parks from an operational perspective, from a sanitation perspective. Is sanitation the word they use? You say sanitation. But, they have a fantastic crew going around and trying to keep the parks clean, but it's not enough. What are they called? They just got new uniforms. They're like green and white now. They're very nice. But it's not sanitation. Janitorial-ish. Whatever. You know what I'm trying to say. despite how hard those folks work, and they do, the parks are dirty. And a lot of times I'm seeing things that really fall under the attraction. Whether it's the side of the Grand Fiesta Tour and I'm seeing water bottles, or there's just trash in the edge of the World Showcase Lagoon, which maybe isn't really an attraction issue, but, you know, there's people out there doing the gardening, right? So I don't know. I look at the parks as a whole and I say, well, if I can point out all of these things, whether it's trash, whether it's just sort of the way that the parks are operating as a whole, whether it's maintenance, you could talk about all the guest experience things that have been stripped away, but forget all that for a minute. Just talking about the fact that, like, the parks don't run the way they're supposed to, and things have been left to go to the wayside. They've been left to the wayside. And the president of Walt Disney World has this kind of time on his hands? So that's where I'm at. I kind of know how I'm going to move forward. I haven't committed to it. I thought I'd come on here and at least try to record something. You know, again, it's my birthday in a moment here, which, again, it really means nothing. It's kind of funny to me because I'm saying that to you and it means nothing. I'm not going to do anything. Nothing's going to change. But you're like, oh, it's my birthday. I'll do a shorter podcast. Well, we have guests planned, right? I think starting next week we're going to start having some more guests on. Keena's been booking guests and working with me on that, so thank you for that. So that's nice. But I didn't want to totally skip something. So I wanted to put something out. I know we're going to do the AM coffee and actually talk about this a little bit more. So if you're listening to this, make sure you listen to that. If you want to just hear a little bit more of an engaged conversation about these emails. But it's one of those things where it's like, I knew it was, I believe Joshua, right? So I already knew it was real. But then with the second one, I'm like, well, I started to get some doubt. And I wanted some answers. And then I was like, well, okay, maybe Joshua and I are both, I don't know. Like, are we falling for something? Like, so you start to have all these doubts that start to, and you're like, I need answers. And I'm willing to put my neck out there, but it goes all the way. It's like if I'm going to do this, you got to do it, right? So it would be easier to find out, even though I suspected all along that they were real. It would have been easier to find out that there were no emails and that the whole thing was, a setup. And it's almost harder now knowing what you're sitting on that you have to now do something about it. But I intend to do something about it because I think it's absolutely absurd. And I will end with this thought for those who don't really understand why it's so absurd. The Walt Disney Company, the Disney parks and the Disney parks experience are built on a very unique brand identity that puts the consumer first, that puts the customer first. Walt was trying to redefine the amusement park experience. Everything was like a carnival, and they were dirty, and the attendants were not pleasant. And so when Walt was embarking on Disneyland, and his wife said, "Well, why? Why would you? These places are filthy, and they're," and he said, "No, my place is going to be different." And that set of principles became the brand identity of Disney parks. To the extent that so many people have led the parks for so long that they become so far removed from that we are here. And that's a huge problem, and we're already about to get a new CEO theoretically, but this now begs for a further realignment. Because those core principles that Walt set out to enact that built up the brand, they've been coasting off of those. They've been coasting off of, now at this point, what are the fumes of a brand identity that they are no longer living up to. It's problematic. It's problematic when the president of Walt Disney World is arguing with guests and threatening to cancel their passes. He has nothing better to do, because I can think of a lot of things he needs to do. Like figure out why the rooftops aren't clean. Figure out why attractions aren't clean. Why there's layers of dirt and dust when you look at the side of an attraction. Figure out why at the edge of the water in the World Showcase Lagoon in Epcot there's so much trash and debris. Figure out why you're paying your executives so much money and your managers so much money, but the folks on the ground don't seem to have everything they need, the cast members who are actually doing the cleaning and the maintaining to get the job done. Why is it that your parks aren't being maintained? And I don't mean from a cleanliness perspective. I do mean from a ride operational perspective, from an attractions perspective. Why aren't things being maintained with the same excellence that they once were? Why is it that so many things, whether it's in a pre-show, a queue, a pre-show, wherever it may be on the attraction itself, why are there so many things that have been disregarded? Why are there so many things that have been disregarded? I can think of so many that just happen to be in Epcot, whether it's the newsboy being turned around in Spaceship Earth, whether it's the way that those acrylic channels have been dealt with in there where the fountain used to be in Epcot, those LEDs that are no longer working. So many things. Or the and I haven't been up there in a long time, but I can tell you the amount of rust that was on Tron. Yes, Tron, within a month or two of it opening. It was absurd. I mean, on the outside of Tron, like the building was it was already showing signs of wear. So if the president of Walt Disney World has time to respond to guests over email, he has time to walk the parks and figure out why things aren't running the way they should. And if he thinks things are running just fine, okay, because the dollars and the cents of it all say that they are running just fine and everything is okay, the guests don't really care, you should really look back at the founder, and you should really look back at the core statement, the mission statement of the company when Walt set out to build Disneyland. You should really take a hard look at that. Because if you really don't buy into those things and you're that dismissive of them, if you truly are, then you shouldn't be in your position in the first place. It's time to spice up your kitchen with Pampered Chef. Pampered Chef has all the goodies from spatulas, mandolins, and amazing pots and pans, not to mention knives. Plus, don't miss out on small appliances like the deluxe air fryer and coffee maker. Spice up your kitchen today. Go to pamperedchef.com/PWS/Colleen Herman. pamperedchef.com/PWS/Colleen Herman. And with no estate plan, you could be leaving those you love the most with high taxes, probate fees, and an incomplete or divided estate and legal fights and fees. If you live in Florida, contact RK Law for a free consultation to discuss the options you have and the tools available to protect your home, savings, and estate for those you love the most. To get started, send an email to russell@rklawpro.com or call 786-566-2456 to set up your consultation today. That's russell@rklawpro.com. And if you're in the market for a 3D printer, visit flashforge.com. With printers starting at under $300, you can begin your 3D adventures today. Visit flashforge.com. And while you're online, head over to Etsy and the Theme Park Factory. The Theme Park Factory on Etsy is a great way to support this channel. Pick up a Joe Coconut and bring a little bit of the Theme Park Factory to your home.